is the Jake for the State podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position,
stand your ground,
and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
All right, guys, welcome back. I am here with Jordan Rollinson with TPUSA. Welcome back, Jordan.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it, man. I'm happy to be here.
You bet. Well, love Turning Point, obviously, all that Charlie Kirk does, all that you guys do, engaging with students both in the high school and in colleges across the nation. But we're especially proud of Oklahoma and what you guys do here in the state. So briefly, just tell everyone what you guys do for Turning Point USA and what you're doing here in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So, man, Turning Point USA, I believe, is the change this generation needs. And what's cool, it's multi-generational. You know, we're helping people understand that the young conservative voice is important. And so how we do that, we help establish connection with students, whether that be in high school and colleges. Mine is primarily high school. And so as a high school representative here in Oklahoma and also over Arkansas and Kansas, we could talk about all the states I'm over. What I do is really just get students involved by starting a chapter. And it just takes them as a president and then two other friends for them to jump into the fight and say, hey, we really want to take a stance and show people that America is still important. And how does that look? Whether that be throwing a pizza party and them doing it around the topic of what does fiscal responsibility look like in their eyes, whether that be doing it with M&Ms and pieces of candy, and that's the easiest way for them to understand that concept, or whether that be helping students register to vote. For example, I had a girl named Madeline East here. She actually goes to Lincoln Christian School here in Tulsa, and she registered 62 students, man. 62 students to vote. Come on. Like, you're talking about
amazing.
Exactly, man. 18 years old doing this. And so it goes across all facets, honestly. And it's just really being able to help them be the representation.
Now, is the main focus, the main thrust of what you do through the chapters political in nature?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we encourage is it to be nonpartisan, but of course some of the topics they're going to obviously discuss, especially when it comes to Turning Point USA, are going to be political, because the reality is there are politics in everything. And so yeah, so we train them to understand, hey, this is nonpartisan, but how we go about it being nonpartisan, not just siding to the right or siding to the left, but being in that middle ground of helping students understand what it means to be a conservative is our messaging. What kind of messaging are we sending out? And so what the cool thing, if you visit turningpointusa.com, is you can see that. You can see the signage we've got. You can see the buttons we hand out to students. It's not saying, hey, we're just pro America by saying, oh, we're pro-Republican. No, not necessarily. We can see some of that mess today in even the Republican Party, that you don't even necessarily have that many conservative Republicans sometimes, or even
Right.
Exactly, or sometimes you got Democrats who are conservatives and they're confused themselves. So yeah.
A lot of gender identity confusion across the
Right.
board,
Right.
political identity confusion. So, and this is it strictly high school? Is it junior high school? What is your age group focus?
Man, another great question. So we are actually allowed to start with 8th graders. So, for example, I'm working right now to hopefully start with an 8th grade chapter, and the whole purpose is if they're about to graduate, we are able to work with them. So if they're about to go into their freshman year, this upcoming school year of 2024, then I'm starting a chapter for them, and so it can start at the latter half of their semester as 8th grade all the way up in high school up to their senior year, and then hopefully they carry that into college.
Now, are you looking for students with a certain quality that you're going to tap on the shoulder saying, hey, we'd love to talk to you about leading a chapter, or do you wait for them to pursue you? How does that process work?
Man, honestly, when it comes down to finding that student, Sometimes it comes organically. So what I do, especially with some of the chapters that I have, is we'll go to tabling events. We'll set up a table. We'll make sure that they have a message that caters to them that they love, whether it be about the Constitution or maybe they're about 2A. You know, it's centered around the involvement of the student and their ideas. And recently, I just had an eighth grader. His name's Kason. Phenomenal kid. Phenomenal kid. He's homeschooled. He said, I want to go table at OBU, put out some buttons about 2A, and then showcase why I'm excited about really playing with airsoft guns. And I said, okay, let's run with that, because in other countries, airsoft is not regulated. It's not allowed. It's against the law. And so that's what we did. And man, he had a plethora of students come and sign up. So it can happen that way. Or for me as a high school representative, what I'll do is really stay in touch with parents and also reach out directly to their kids if they're okay with that and say, hey, is this something that you'd like to attend, whether it be YWLS? So we promote events alongside that. So when I'm getting involved with kids, I'm telling them, hey, we're not looking at you as someone who's an investment to us. We are investing in you. And how we do that is not, oh, just go table for us, thank you for getting our numbers. No, not absolutely. No, that actually, if you were to tell me that as a kid, I'm not talking to you again. But we have events like CLS, so Campus Leadership Summit, that's going on. I've got 4 kids from Oklahoma going to that. We've got YWLS, Young Women's Leadership Summit, that's happening June 7th through the 9th this summer. That's how I get young females who are wanting, especially in high school age, that are wanting to get involved and find friends of the common really thinking. It's hard for some of these kids to even find that community, but we help them develop that, and it changes really the interaction that they see. Oh, I am conservative, so are most of my friends that I know. So,
Yes. Well, so you mentioned that your territories are Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. What are the similarities and what are the differences between some of these states, if you can note any of those?
no, yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say Oklahoma is you think we're conservative, right? And we are. We primarily are. I think a lot of times when I'm in circles and speaking with the older generation, and understanding their wisdom and how long they've been in this, let's call it race. It's a long
Right.
journey. They tend to think that it's a very red state. And same thing with Kansas as well as Arkansas, and I'm also over Tennessee, these 4 states. They think they're very red, and they are, primarily among the older generation. But when it comes to the younger generation and what I'm seeing develop within the young high school age, between the ages, let's say 13 to 18, sometimes 19. What I'm seeing across the board is that they all are very similar in their beliefs. Um, Most of these kids are receiving most of this information off TikTok, which we could talk for days on. We already know the effects and the damaging effects of Instagram and TikTok and the development of that brain, in terms of how they see the world. But what's interesting is that you can't even just say, well, Oklahoma, Kansas, Tennessee, although we're the same across the board in terms of beliefs and conservatism, they have one shared view, and that is, well, I'm more independent. And so I hope that answered that question, because there's not really a specific, especially take New York, for example. That's going to be a little bit different. Now, I could say, yeah, there's an identifiable difference between New York and Oklahoma and Kansas in that. But since we
Yeah.
are in the Midwest/South, it tends
Hmm.
to be the same, which I'm very grateful for, because it makes my communication with those students very easy.
Yeah, I would imagine they would be, but you bring up an interesting topic, the influence of social media. And what that is doing, not just to the brain function of kids, and can talk about the addictive qualities of social media and just our phones in general, which I'm the first to say I'm not immune to, and I have to constantly monitor myself. I'm myself doom scrolling all at times and have to set boundaries for myself, but I set those for myself.
Right,
Kids, are they setting them for themselves? Probably not. Are their parents setting those
right,
boundaries? I don't know. And so then we have this unfettered access to the World Wide Web, to absolutely anything, and then to the addictive app like TikTok, everything's. I hate to differentiate between TikTok and the others. They seem like they're about the same now with the reels.
Right.
I mean, you can get on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and you get on the doom scroll. But I'm wondering not just how it can suck them in and cause them to be addicted, but possibly reshaping the culture, the next generation, so that state boundaries, regional boundaries, maybe they don't mean as much because we're having a global influence across the board. Now that person in New York is influencing someone in the South, and they're adopting some of these ideologies.
Right.
And so now we're seeing things shift here in the South, and maybe in 20 years, it's a completely different landscape.
Right. And no, that's very true. I mean, like you said, the World Wide Web, that's been around for quite some time. Well, for me at least, I'm 25. I didn't mean to age you there, Jake. I'm sorry.
You're born into
But
it. You're born into it. Yeah.
hey, you still look good, man. You look like you can knock me out. But I'm only 25 years old, and so what's interesting, I will say, as someone who is the latter half of Gen Z, I didn't have TikTok in high school. I did have Instagram. I remember there was an app called Vine. So Vine was around, Instagram, but I will say they weren't as political. I'm sorry, say that again.
Are you on Snapchat?
Yeah, I did have a Snapchat.
Okay, that seems to be, I mean, my nephew, for instance, he doesn't even have a Facebook account. He just does everything through Snapchat. So it's so interesting talking to people just 2 years younger than you.
Yeah, no, it is. And what's interesting is when I was in high school and grew up with these apps, they weren't as politically extreme as they are now. And what I mean by that is I knew who Obama was, when and Trump, and whenever the race kicked off, and you knew to an extent, Mitt Romney. I knew all these guys. I wasn't very involved in politics though, but I knew to an extent. But I feel like more than ever, what's happened, and even recent years, you talk about the cases against Facebook selling data and promoting political ideology and censoring certain posts and all this. It was like a volcano erupted. I feel like, but it's been happening over years. I feel like it's just been happening. We just didn't catch it till now. Now we're understanding. Oh, this is a bigger. This is Big Brother. This is larger than we thought. And so what's very interesting with this new generation, this younger generation of Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha on the way, I feel like the trajectory of and the purpose of social media now is to really shape their minds. Not that it wasn't the game beforehand. I just think now it's more relevant and open. They're more open about it, and they do have an interesting. I mean, we just recently had a Netflix series released on this. I forget what it's called, but even those developers, some of them came out and said, yes, with that algorithm, we are trying to essentially get the addiction of social media up so that the more you view it, the more you understand it, we're already playing with your emotions so that you stay within that state of mind. So there's not necessarily growth in terms of just, let's talk about brain activity. It's less growth in the brain activity. It's less self-development. And so when it comes time, even in the political arena where kids have to think for themselves, they're not thinking for themselves. Someone already did it for them. Somebody already told them how to think. And so now you're seeing that really transition, even in this 2024 election that's going to happen. You're going to see some of those numbers rocked. And the reason why I truly believe is because social media with this newer generation who's about to graduate high school, and they grew up with TikTok, a more an app that really is just so disingenuous and also is dedicated to swaying the opinion and even just anything centered around the family. It's completely trying to remove that. It's an evil. It's an evil. Let's just call it for what it is.
I talked with Mason Cottrell. He's the TPUSA rep for the college campuses here in Oklahoma. And we talked about the apathy. He said that's his number one barrier. I'm wondering how that compares to high schools here in Oklahoma. Is it apathy? Is it maybe they haven't even had a chance to get started engaging in political ideas? Maybe they're just now shaping their fundamental beliefs and their identities and things like that.
Right.
And so what are you seeing in junior high and high schools across Oklahoma as far as any kind of fire, any kind of motivation to get involved at all? Are you seeing, I mean, what percentage would you say are even interested in political ideas and events?
No, that's a great question. What's interesting is I've had students say, "Well, I'm not necessarily Republican, but I'm more in the middle. I'm more of a progressive conservative, or a more." So they are well aware. Sometimes I think, um, in terms of when it comes to the GOP, and we've got all this data and research. We could talk about it for days. I could sit here and spit the facts. Everyone can do that. Anyone can do that. But when you have these interactions with these kids, you start to understand. Wait a minute. There's something here. They are
Mhm.
well aware of what they identify as. Now, and I get there is confusion among when it comes to liberal students, when it comes to the ones who want to transition or come out as a furry, or they come out. No, yes, you have a little bit of confusion there. I think that's going to exist till the end of time, till Jesus comes. That's my personal belief. Um, it's never going to stop. But I will say, when it comes to that conservative student, there are more conservative kids out there than we know. And the reason why I say that is one example for his name's Noah Cohen. Noah Cohen. He's a phenomenal student. He's homeschooled. He's actually from Chicago. We just started an activism hub. We are moving forward with it. He's got a couple friends at Regent. And so what's really cool about him is he is only 50. He just turned 15, only 15 years old, and can talk about the Constitution, knows Latin, knows Spanish, has the capability of arguing politics, understanding policy. So you've got those kind of kids who are the hybrids. I like to call them the stars. They're the hybrids, meaning they're well aware because they have great parents who have really spoken to them. But then you have the students who are in such as public school. So say, let's say Jinx, or let's say Bixby High School. Those students are so exposed to really what's going on around them, especially in the world, because now they're more so involved with it. They've encountered it, and so what has happened is, um, I want to say I wouldn't say an explosion of conservatism, but a realization of conservatism, because they realize something's wrong here. So I feel like there was a weird period of time with my latter half of Gen Z where we didn't really catch it. We didn't really catch it. We knew there were things wrong within our generation. We knew that there were more signs of liberalism, and not in the right ways. Liberal ideas are great, but liberalism in terms of persuading kids to be, gender reassigned, liberal ideas that are social, the social and economic construct of we want to promote socialism, communism, all that. I think we knew it existed then, but it didn't really have a profound effect until recently, because now my generation, the latter half, Gen Z, 25, between 25 and really 22, you started to see that. But now what's interesting is between these students who are 14, 15, 16, and 17, they're starting to say, no, we're not going to have that anymore. So there is hope. I hope that answered that question. I want to make sure I communicate. There is hope. I think sometimes in the news headlines, we like to say, it's doomsday. But at the end of the day, I truly believe there is hope, because you got students like Noah, you've got students like Madeline East, you've got students like Kale, who's at Regent, who are saying, you know what, we're not going to have this. We're not going to stand up for this. We're going to stand for what's right. And we're going to promote America. And we're going to promote family values. We're going to promote what it means to literally be a great citizen of America.
Yeah. I'm here with Jordan Rollinson, by the way, with TP USA, Turning Point USA. Jordan, you talked about those issues coming to them. And I'm thinking about just what it was like when I was in junior high and high school. And I wasn't very aware, really, of political talks and issues. And, I think that because they were so distant from me, but I think that we're seeing some issues like the LGBTQ agenda that has very much infiltrated the public school system. Even issues like TikTok. Now,
Right.
TikTok, an app that some kids' lives revolve around TikTok. I think we've all seen the young girl at the mall over by herself with the camera set up, and she's doing a dance. She doesn't care who's watching her.
Right.
A little dance. You're like, she's on TikTok. And, if we didn't know about TikTok, we'd say she's insane. It's kind of like whenever I remember when earbuds first came out, wireless, and you
Right.
would see somebody talking to themselves, and you're like, what is going on? Oh, yes, he has one of those wireless things in his ear. Now it's commonplace, and we're like, it's on his earbuds. same thing now. You see somebody dancing randomly in the mall. It's like, oh, doing a video for TikTok. But these apps are so connected to their identity sometimes. And now they're being
Yes.
challenged in Congress. Now there's a threat of this being taken away from them. So it's forcing them to engage politically, get involved in that political conversation through issues like the TikTok controversy, like the LGBTQ agenda. And so I think that I could say it's an opportunity for us and for you now that these issues and the political tie is up front and center in front of their face, influencing their lives. It's a chance to have this conversation, whereas otherwise we might not.
Exactly, and that's a very good point. You hit it right on the nail. You said their social media platforms are their livelihood. Their social media platforms, it's their ID. It is their identification. It is. I would admit, even at 25, posting for Turning Point USA, or even on my personal page on Instagram, I have my wife on there. I recently just got married, and, I put that on there, and I'm working for Turning Point USA. I'm also doing roofing on the side. So I post all these things because I see that as not a way of marketing, but this is who I am. And
It's
so
not official until you post it, right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not official until you post it. And man, let me tell you, when I started dating Madison Page, man, she made sure that I posted. Now we're married, but no, it was not official until it
You
was on
gotta
the
change
ground.
your status, boy.
Exactly. How to put her in the in the bio, bro, you already know what I'm talking about. Um, but no, it definitely is something that it's engaging with students now because they're starting to understand. I know a lot of fight was around, the First Amendment being taken away, and yeah, especially with the TikTok being banned possibly in America. But what's
Just even
interesting,
that right there. I mean, you have an opportunity to say the First Amendment is challenged. What
exactly,
is the First Amendment? And so it's a chance to even have the discussion about what is the First Amendment. Because I
exactly,
think that's what we're dealing with right now is such a pervasive ignorance
right.
in the youth that we can introduce them sometimes to these concepts for the first time.
Exactly. Exactly. And every moment, I think sometimes, like I said, we now in my personal beliefs, I can't speak for Turning Point USA. I will speak for myself. I am a believer, and so a lot of times I feel as if people love to focus on the negative. But in my life, I like to focus on the positive. How I do that is I read the Word of God every day. I
Mhm.
like to spend time in prayer with my wife. I like to really see in my personal beliefs, what the Lord is speaking and how He sees things. And so, I believe there is hope. And this is, like you said, an educational opportunity. I think the world likes to focus on the doomsday message because it gets the tabloids. It receives more views. It creates a plethora of or it's like a bomb. It's people love drama.
Oh, yeah.
But what's incredible about this, even though in the middle of this dramatic fight for really the minds of these kids and these minds of these students, and preserving conservatism, preserving those conservative values that we're talking about today, there is hope for that, and that's because issues like this are rising. And no matter what, in my personal beliefs, again, I will say this: I can't speak for Turning Point USA. In my personal beliefs, at the end of the day, Jesus wins. And so when I'm talking to these kids, I come from a perspective of hope, not from a perspective of doubt. And that's what they need today. They don't need to be told that they're a generation that's addicted. They already know that they're a generation that is right now trying to figure things out. I mean, let's talk about the housing crisis that's going on. Let's talk about the things that make it seem impossible, even at 25, to maybe build a family. All these things that the world throws on you. But one thing that these kids need, is hope. And the moment that's what Turning Point USA does. Outside now I'm back on Turning Point USA and speaking for them. We provide hope. We provide and craft a message of hope, not because we're trying to sell them, but because that's what we believe. We believe America still has a future. We still believe America still has a chance, regardless of what the White House is doing, regardless of what the president is doing, regardless of what congressmen are saying. We still have hope. And as long as we continue with the message of hope for them and this generation, we will win. We will always win.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's not about republicanism. It's not about Democrat. It's about literally conservative values, fighting for the family union, fighting for the rights to be able to own a business and to dream, have the American dream. That's what we need to give them. And so as long as we continue to do that, we will see a turn in this country. I absolutely believe that.
you're talking with a lot of students that come from broken homes, especially in this day. I mean, I would probably argue that at least half of the students that you are engaging with on a daily basis in public schools, I don't know, I may be wrong, but it's got to be up there high, close to half, as far as some kind of brokenness in the home, whether it's a divorced parent or some kind of abuse going on. I mean, it's just so pervasive as well. And so you emphasize family values. I always emphasize family values and how the onus is on the parents as the primary influencer of the child, not the teacher, not even the pastor, but the moms and dads. And so I wonder about this message of hope that you bring. How does that resonate with them when you talk about the core nuclear family? Is that something that's received? I mean, how is that received when you talk about the priority of the family in high schools?
Yeah, no, that's great. How I always and how I really relay this message to students is I talk about what they're interested in first. So and especially when I talk about families, because sometimes it's a very touchy topic. You don't want to just go in there and say, "Oh, we're here to save the families of America." What does that mean to a 14-year-old? It doesn't mean anything sometimes. You just hit it again on the nail. You hit it on the nail. Sometimes they're in hopeless situations. Sometimes they're in broken families. Sometimes they're facing court cases or a divorce, anything of that sort. And so, how I do that under Turning Point USA is really just through helping them understand that they have a friend in me. I think sometimes we forget that, especially working for Turning Point USA, I will say, I think sometimes we start to treat politics, or not politics, jobs as politics, and also jobs as numbers. But at the end of the day, that student is just a student. And so when I'm communicating these ideas of what we stand for as an organization, I'm not coming to them pushing the fact on them. I'm coming to them with encouraging them. Hey, this is what you can have, regardless of the situation that you're in. And so, yeah, some of them do come from broken homes. Some of them do come from a lot of rough places. And they have a lot of testimonies of how they've overcame that. But those tend to be the best students because they have something that they fought for. And that was themselves most of the time. And how we enter in, especially as a high school field representative for Turning Point USA, we are there to guide them. We are like a youth counselor in a way. We're here to do anything and everything that we can to make that student succeed, not just in their numbers of their club, not just in their chapters of how many they want to start, not just in tabling measures. No, we want to see them personally succeed. We want to see them, if they want to go to college, go to college. If they want to get a good paying job straight out of high school, go get that high, go for it. That's what we're here for. We're here to encourage. We're here to mentor. So this isn't a position of us pushing that. It's a position of mentoring them into seeing this is what it could be, and this is how it should be. And what I mean by how it should be is we want you to be successful. We want you to have hope. We want you to have that dream. And we want you to have a very good family, regardless of that situation you're in right now. We're here for you to talk about it. And again, in my personal belief, I'm here for you. I can't speak for Turning Point USA, but for myself, I'm here to pray for you. Most of my students end up being Christian in Oklahoma, I will say. Some not, but most are. And so I have the opportunity of praying and saying, hey, I'm here to pray for you. I'm here to talk with your parents if you have any troubles that are going on in school or going in your personal life. But I'm here for you no matter what. And that's all they need to know. If you want to talk to a student, get to be their friend. If you want to see them actually open up, get to know them. Don't go to them and push your idea or agenda. Go to them and say, hey, what are you interested in? Hey, what do you see that's going on? And hey, what are some of the things you're struggling with? Because that's what I'm here to help you with. Because at the end of the day, these kids are going through much more than we know sometimes.
Hmm. I think we could apply that same principle to adults.
Absolutely, man.
You know, sometimes we need to just go befriend someone and listen and find out what's important to them, what they believe and why they believe it, and have that conversation. And
Exactly.
I think if we did that, we would start influencing the world bit by bit, and then we would start seeing a completely different landscape. One of my heroes is Frederick Douglass, and the fact that he was a slave and rose up out of slavery to become one of the most influential men in the world. But it started with Sophia Auld, who taught him how to read
Right.
as a slave, and just empowering him with the basics. That gave him enough to believe in himself and then to step onto the world stage with a powerful message and become one of the most notorious orators of all time.
Exactly.
Just empowering these youth is so important, teaching them basic skills, but also the basics of, hey, I'm here to be a friend. And
Absolutely.
I believe in you, and encourage them down the road. Such a powerful thing. I think that what you guys are doing is probably some of the most significant work in the nation today, because if we don't invest in the youth, then we're just waiting to fail. We may win the day, but we won't win the war. We've got to be thinking long term. So thank you for what you're doing here in Oklahoma, helping to preserve our future. And again, I have to add to it that it's not all on you. It's not on Turning Point. It's on the parents. It's to engage with our kids on a regular basis, to mentor them. It's not mentoring them, it's parenting them.
Right.
It's to
Right.
to them. You can be the mentor, but a parent needs to be a parent. But hey, there's always a place for you and for Turning Point and for the mentorship that you guys are doing. So thank you for that. And thank you for your time today, Jordan.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Well, it's Jordan Rollinson with Turning Point USA. We love the organization, and we love what Jordan's doing across the state, working with our youth in high schools and junior highs. So get behind them. Go check out and see what they're doing. Got more to come on the Jake for the State podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Always interesting conversations with world changers and difference makers like Jordan. And so if you know of someone that you would like for me to interview, send me a comment at jakeforthestate@gmail.com. All right, we'll catch you next episode.